Thought of being kissed by someone else's baby.
There was a time when every radio in Britain sang with life. When you could walk down any high street and hear the Beatles, Dusty Springfield, or Tom Jones pouring from every shop doorway. The stars of the 60s weren't just famous, they defined who we were. Their voices shaped our childhoods, their songs filled our hearts, and even now, one note can take us straight back in time. Let's rewind to the British pop stars who ruled the airwaves in the 60s and why we miss them so much. 1. Cliff Richard. Before the Beatles, before the wildness of rock took over, there was Cliff Richard, Britain's first true pop idol. With his polished smile, perfectly combed hair, and gentle voice, Cliff represented a bridge between the safe 50s and the swinging 60s. Songs like Living Doll, Summer Holiday, and The Young Ones weren't just hits, they were anthems for a Britain on the brink of change. He was the boy every mother adored and every teenager quietly swooned over. His film roles and stage charm made him the wholesome face of British pop, at a time when the country needed something bright and hopeful. Even as the decade grew wilder, Cliff stayed steady. Always smiling, always singing, always showing up on top of the pops. His career became the template for generations of performers who followed, proving that you didn't have to be outrageous to be unforgettable. Now, when those early hits come on the radio, there's a collective sigh of recognition, a reminder of when pop music felt innocent, sunny, and full of promise. 2. Dusty Springfield. Elegant, emotional, and completely one of a kind, Dusty Springfield wasn't just a pop star. She was a voice that could break your heart. Her smoky tone and soulful delivery brought a new kind of sophistication to British pop, one that blended Motown passion with homegrown melancholy. From I Only Want to Be With You to You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, Dusty sang like she meant every word. Behind the blonde beehive and the eyeliner was an artist who poured her entire being into every song. She was adored on both sides of the Atlantic, admired by singers who came after her, and remembered by fans who still play her records when they need to feel something real. In the age of polished pop, Dusty's voice remains pure emotion, the kind of honesty that no studio trick could ever recreate. She wasn't loud or brash, she was timeless. The 60s gave us many stars, but only one Dusty Springfield. 3. Cilla Black. Before she was the queen of television, Cilla was one of Britain's brightest pop voices. Discovered by the Beatles and managed by Brian Epstein, Cilla brought Scout's charm and real talent to every stage she stepped on. Her songs like Anyone Who Had a Heart and You're My World filled the charts and the nation's living rooms. She wasn't glamorous in the Hollywood sense. She was authentic, warm, and relatable. You could imagine her laughing with you down the pub or singing from the heart on a Sunday variety show. What made Cilla special was her sincerity. She sang with the same passion she spoke with, bold, funny, and heartfelt. Her voice carried both strength and vulnerability, a perfect reflection of the women who listened to her. Even as she moved into television and became a household name for Blind Date and Surprise Surprise, her musical roots never faded. Those early records still capture the optimism of a decade that believed anything was possible.
4. Billy Fury. Before rock and roll became a global phenomenon, Britain had Billy Fury, the brooding, charismatic heartthrob who could make a crowd swoon with a single note. With his slick hair, leather jackets, and smoldering stare, he was the very image of rebellion. But behind the swagger was a deep sensitivity. His songs like Halfway to Paradise and Jealousy were full of longing and heartbreak, sung with a tenderness that set him apart from his louder American counterparts. He never quite achieved the global fame he deserved, but in Britain, Billy was adored. His performances were raw and real. You could feel every emotion in his voice. To fans of the 60s, he was more than just a pop idol. He was a symbol of change, the moment when British youth began to claim its own identity. Today, his records still sound hauntingly beautiful, reminders of a talent lost too soon and a time when music was simple, powerful, and pure. 5. Petula Clark. If there was a soundtrack to optimism in 1960s Britain, it was Petula Clark's Downtown. That song alone seemed to capture the spirit of an entire generation. The bright lights, the fashion, the promise of independence and fun. But Petula's career went far beyond that single hit. She was already a star in France before she conquered Britain and America, bringing a worldly sophistication to pop music that few could match. Her voice was clear and confident, full of poise yet brimming with life. Songs like Don't Sleep in the Subway and Color My World became anthems of hope and freedom, reminders that the world was changing and women were finding their voices in every sense. She wasn't rebellious like Jagger or mysterious like Lennon, but she didn't need to be. Petula Clark represented something equally powerful: joy. The joy of a nation stepping into modernity, one chorus at a time. 6. The Hollies. Few groups captured the beauty of melody quite like the Hollies. Before psychedelic experimentation and hard rock took over, they mastered the art of harmony. Bright, layered vocals that felt like sunshine in sound. With Alan Clark's clear voice and Graham Nash's smooth harmonies, they gave Britain a sound that was both pure and powerful. Their songs like Bus Stop, Carrie Ann, and He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother weren't just hits, they were poetry set to music. There was something so quintessentially British about them, modest, tuneful, and full of emotion without ever trying too hard. Their songs played on kitchen radios while mums cooked dinner, blared from youth clubs where couples swayed under dim lights, and poured out of transistor radios tucked into park benches on summer afternoons. The Hollies didn't scream rebellion. They sang about love, loyalty, and life's quiet struggles. And that's why they lasted. Even today, when that opening guitar of He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother begins, it feels like being transported straight back to the heart of the 60s. Warm, nostalgic, and achingly beautiful.
When Lulu burst onto the scene as a teenager with Shout, she didn't just sing the song, she owned it. Her voice, powerful and fearless, announced her as one of the most exciting female pop stars Britain had ever produced. She was tiny but unstoppable, with that unmistakable Scottish spark that made her instantly likable. As the 60s rolled on, Lulu proved she was no one-hit wonder. With hits like To Sir with Love and Boom Bang a Bang, which won Eurovision in 1969, she became a national treasure. What made Lulu unforgettable wasn't just her talent, it was her energy. She threw herself into every performance, every note, like it was the most important moment in the world. She was bubbly, bright, and bold, the embodiment of 60s optimism. Her success crossed borders and generations, but it was that raw, joyous spirit of her early records that captured the heart of Britain. Lulu didn't just sing, she shouted for a new kind of woman, young, independent, and unafraid to make noise. When Jerry Marsden sang You'll Never Walk Alone, He didn't just record a song, he gave Britain an anthem. As the frontman of Jerry and the Pacemakers, he carried the spirit of Liverpool to the entire world during the Mercy Beat explosion. Alongside the Beatles, Jerry's group helped define the early 60s sound, catchy, hopeful, and full of heart. Hits like Ferry Cross the Mersey and Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying blended working-class soul with pop perfection. But it was You'll Never Walk Alone that became his legacy, adopted by Liverpool Football Club and sung by millions ever since. For a man from humble beginnings, that was immortality. Jerry wasn't a rock god or a fashion icon. He was one of us. Honest, kind, and passionate. His voice carried both pride and comfort. Long after the screaming faded and the stages dimmed, his music kept echoing. A reminder that the 60s were about more than fame. They were about feeling. Before Mick Jagger sneered his way onto the stage, Adam Faith was already Britain's first true pop rebel. With his quiff, his swagger, and his sharp suits, he brought attitude to a generation that was still shaking off post-war politeness. Songs like What Do You Want and Poor Me had a punchy, edgy sound, and Faith's clip delivery gave them a cool confidence that teenagers adored. He wasn't dangerous, but he felt daring enough for his time. He wasn't just a singer, though. He was a trailblazer. When his music career slowed, he became an actor and entrepreneur, showing that the pop stars of the 60s could be more than just voices on vinyl. Adam Faith's fame may have been overtaken by the rock giants that followed, but his influence remained. He paved the way for every sharp-tongued, stylish frontman who came after him, proving that pop music could have both charm and bite.
10. Sandy Shaw. When Sandy Shaw walked on stage barefoot, it wasn't just a fashion choice, it was a statement. She was modern, fresh, and utterly unpretentious, a true 60s icon who embodied the spirit of freedom and individuality. Her voice was soft but distinctive, with a wistful charm that made songs like There's Always Something There to Remind Me and Long Live Love unforgettable. She didn't just sing about romance, she felt it. Dreamy, hopeful, and slightly bittersweet. In 1967, she became the first British woman to win the Eurovision Song Contest with Puppet on a String, sealing her place in pop history. Yet she was always more than the image. Sandy had an edge. She chose her songs carefully, challenged industry expectations, and never played the part of a passive pop girl. 11. The Animals. When the Animals exploded onto the scene in 1964 with House of the Rising Sun, it felt like a thunderclap. The song was raw, emotional, and unapologetically real, a million miles away from polished pop. Eric Burdon's gritty voice carried the weight of every factory worker, every shipbuilder, every man who'd known struggle. They weren't clean-cut like the Beatles or whimsical like the Kinks. The Animals were hard-edged, moody, and soulful. Their music had dirt under its nails and heart in its throat. Songs like Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood and We Gotta Get Out of This Place became working-class anthems, expressing the frustrations and dreams of ordinary people across Britain. They came from Newcastle, not London, not Liverpool, and that mattered. They were proof that great music could come from anywhere, that you didn't need polish or privilege to make your mark. For every young lad who picked up a guitar in a northern pub, the Animals were heroes. Today, their sound still hits like a punch in the gut, a reminder of when British pop had teeth and when every song was sung like it mattered. 12. Marianne Faithfull. Few figures embodied both the beauty and tragedy of the 60s quite like Marianne Faithfull. When she first appeared with her angelic face and haunting voice, she seemed like the perfect poster girl for the swinging 60s. Her debut hit, As Tears Go By, written by Jagger and Richards, turned her into an overnight star. But Marianne was never just a pretty face. She was an artist with depth, poetry, and pain. Her relationship with Mick Jagger made headlines, but behind the glamour was a woman struggling to find her place in a world that loved its stars young, wild, and perfect. As the decade wore on, her voice deepened, her songs grew darker, and her story became more complex. Yet that was what made her unforgettable. She lived every lyric she ever sang. From innocence to experience, from heartbreak to survival. Marianne Faithfull's music reminds us that the 60s weren't just about joy and rebellion. They were also about fragility, freedom, and the cost of both. Her voice today, older and wiser, still carries the echo of a girl who once sang about tears and knew exactly what they meant.
13. Tom Jones. If the 60s had a voice big enough to shake the walls, it belonged to Tom Jones. From the coalfields of Pontypridd to the stages of Las Vegas, his rise was pure legend. A working-class boy with a voice so powerful it could blow your hair back. When It's Not Unusual hit the charts, Britain had never heard anything quite like it. Soulful, sexy, and full of swagger, Tom was both gentleman and animal. With songs like Delilah, What's New Pussycat, and Green Green Grass of Home, he became the everyman superstar, beloved by mums, admired by dads, and idolized by daughters. He was pure charisma, shaking hips, flashing smiles, and singing every word as if he meant it. But beneath the showmanship, there was substance. His voice was rich, emotional, and real, bridging pop, soul, and gospel with ease. In a world of cool rockers and brooding poets, Tom Jones was unashamedly alive. He brought heat, humor, and humanity to pop music. And though he's still with us, the Tom of the 60s remains a symbol of when fame was earned through sheer unstoppable talent. 14. The Zombies. The Zombies were never the loudest or flashiest band of the 60s, but they were one of the most magical. With their haunting melodies, sophisticated harmonies, and quietly beautiful songwriting, they crafted music that felt like a dream half remembered. Songs like She's Not There, Tell Her No, and Time of the Season shimmered with elegance and melancholy. Colin Blunstone's voice, breathy, gentle, yet full of feeling, could melt even the hardest heart. While many bands chased fame, the Zombies seemed to chase beauty. Their masterpiece album, Odyssey and Oracle, went largely unnoticed on release, only to become one of the most celebrated British pop albums ever made years later. They weren't rebels or trendsetters, they were craftsmen. Their music spoke softly, but it spoke forever. Listening to them now feels like opening a time capsule, fragile, nostalgic, and impossibly lovely. 15. The Tremolos. In a decade that produced revolution in rebellion, the Tremolos stood for something simpler: happiness. Their harmonies, catchy choruses, and upbeat energy made them one of the most beloved pop groups of the mid-60s. With hits like Here Comes My Baby, Even the Bad Times Are Good, and Silence is Golden, they brought sunshine to Britain's airwaves. Their music wasn't complicated. It was made to make people smile, dance,